What's going on, y'all? So I know you see the title of the video, and I'm gonna tell you right now, the short answer is no. But let me tell you a little bit of why I think that. We'll get right into it. So let's roll that intro.
It's the power of G. What we doing, come and see. Making bold comments on movies and on TV. Everything magic, ironic, cause he the one. Go subscribe, cause it's easier to show you what's going on. It's the power of G.
So y'all, before we get started, I just really want to remind y'all, these are opinions. I am just a fat man sitting in his room talking about a 25-plus-year-old TV show. So please take what I say with a grain of salt. These are just opinions. These are just my thoughts. I just wanted to put that out there.
Get it?
Got it.
Good.
So if you have been living under a rock and you just don't know what Charmed is a 1998 television program that aired on the WB. It aired from 1998 to 2006. It starred Shannon Doherty, Holly Marie Combs, Alyssa Milano, and later Rose McGowan. It also had, some other stars like Brian Krause, Drew Fuller, Dorian Gregory. We had a very good cast. And I think that's part of the reason that I feel like it shouldn't be rebooted, but we're going to get there. Let's start here. So just as a point of reference, Charmed was actually rebooted in 2018. And the reboot was not very well received among the Charmed fandom, or the OG Charmed fandom rather, just for multiple reasons. There was some behind the scenes stuff going on with like the original cast and then the new cast, and then there was just like the quality of the show itself. It kind of depends on the person that you ask how they're going to actually receive that show and what their thoughts of it are. Now, as for me, I don't really feel like the show was horrible. I think that it just had a lot of issues, and then it was so based on nostalgia that by the time it started trying to do its own thing, it just kind of got lost in translation. And nostalgia is actually where I want to start off on my list of reasons why I just don't think Charm needs a reboot. We live in a society that is very heavily nostalgia based. Everything is a reboot, a remake, a redo, a continuation, a revival. Everything is something, like, and when we do get original shows, they might get kicked, they might get, canceled because no one's watching it. And I think that what you hear a lot of times when there are fandoms are people saying, we want a continuation of, we want a revival of, we want this. I really wanted to talk about this because on TikTok Live, I always see people saying that they want to see a continuation with the kids. They need to have a show based around the kids. I want to see that. I want to see what's going on with them. I want the show to come back. The actresses need to come back. There's always that talk about wanting the show to come back. Now, I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I feel, and I've been very vocal about this. If you follow me on TikTok or if you've ever been to a live, I'm very vocal. I do not feel like people actually want a revival of Charmed. I think people want something that they're never going to get, which is to watch it for the first time again. They want to be able to sit down and watch it and say, oh, this is just like when I watched Charmed the first time. And they want to get that experience. And it's just not going to happen. And I don't think that that's unique to the Charmed universe. I think that that's something, like I said, that is a big issue within society, is we're chasing that feeling of when we watch something, and we're chasing that popularity of something, and we're never going to get that feeling back. Because I think that one of kind of like the lightning in a bottle qualities about the original Charmed is just the way that the cast worked together and the chemistry that they had, and the way that the original three actresses, the second set of actresses, the way that they mingled with each other. And y'all, please, for the love of God, do not bring up any behind the scenes drama. I don't like talking about that over here because I just think it takes away from the legacy of the show just to continuously roll around in drama. I choose to focus on the positive aspects. And one of the things that I think always worked for that show so well was that everyone embodied their character perfectly. But more than that, they interacted with everyone else who was embodying their character. So when you would watch Prue and Phoebe fight, it felt like sisters fighting. When you would watch Piper not really know which way to go and just sort of like, I'm not getting in the middle of this, it felt like a middle sister. When you watched Paige try to figure out how to connect with them as women, as sisters, it felt natural because she didn't know them. So they had this chemistry among them that wasn't just based in we threw them together and they had one screen test and everything worked out. They had an actual natural chemistry. And I actually think that that chemistry that they have is the basis of why the show is still so popular. Why 20 plus years later, we're still talking about it. Why we're still sitting here having discussions is because the energy that they put into it and the heart and soul that they put into that show, you just can't replicate it. You can't go back and say, "Oh, you know what? I think we could do that again." Because one of the things that really worked in their favor was being able to put make them feel like they were sisters who truly had a history with each other. And I think that one of the things that the 2018, now this is not me critiquing the 2018 reboot. This is more of me just sort of giving my general thoughts on it in relation to what I'm talking about with the original Charmed. I think that when the 2018 reboot was introduced, I think a big mark that they missed initially, that I do think they went back and rectified, but I think what really threw them off base initially is that they didn't necessarily have a bond that could be seen or felt. They did a lot of telling us. So even the mantra that Mel and Maggie have, that their mom would say with them, your differences are your strengths and all of that, that feels very, we're going to lead you down the path of wanting you to know that they're sisters. We want you to see that they're sisters. We are trying to build this. And I think you just can't build that kind of chemistry. You can't build that kind of history or relationship just by them having a mantra that they say. I think that one of the best parts of the OG Charmed was the fact that when we come into the show, there's beef between Prue and Phoebe. Because again, that shows that there's a history between them. That shows that they cared about each other enough at one point that something came between them so big that they had this huge wedge between them, and then Piper's there in the middle. So the story doesn't try to tell us that they're these close sisters who love each other so deeply and whatnot. They come in telling us that yes, they love each other, but we got some issues we have to work out. And us being able to work that out is going to connect the viewers to the story, and it's going to help us to feel like we're on a journey with them. And so many shows are now so deeply steeped in symbolism, and they want to tell you without telling you, but then they also want it to be like glaringly obvious. And so I think that that would be another thing that would kind of hinder a show like Charmed coming back. Like, not to say that the writing could be is just going to be atrocious, because I think that in the hands of a right writer, like in the right person's hands, a reboot of Charmed will really be good. But I think another thing to take into consideration is the fact that nobody's gonna, people love Charm so much, they're going to find a reason to not like it. There's going to be something that they're going to watch and they're going to say, I don't like this. They didn't do this right. They didn't do this callback right. They didn't do that. They didn't. There's going to be something. It just doesn't feel right. It just doesn't feel like the original Charmed. I think that that actually leads me into my second point. It's going to be a cash grab. Let's just be 100% honest. It's going to be a cash grab depending on who gets it. And it's going to be nostalgia bait. It's going to say, hey, look at this shiny series we have. You used to love it when you were a kid. Oh, but it's going to be 10 times better now. And I think that that main thing is going to take away from the heart and soul of it. Now, that is fully an opinion. That is fully an opinion. And that's also why I said dependent on who gets it, because a show like Charmed, if the wrong company sees that this show is popular still, if they see that there is a high demand for this show to come back, the first thing they're going to do is get the rights to it and try to bring it back and try to make it quote unquote better and try to make it this and try to make it that. And it's going to turn into a circus because they're going to try to want us to watch it. They're going to make us want to tap in just to see what it's given. And then we can make content about it. And then it's going to be, Twitter's going to be a buzz and whatever else. But people might not like it because the heart and soul of it is not there, because Charmed is a show that means so much to so many people. You can pick a character from that show and say, I love them. This person, I relate to this character so much. I relate to their story. I relate to what they've gone through. I relate to where they're going. And then because we've watched it so many times, the super fans, we know what's going to happen and we feel so comforted. Like even when we're mad at a character, we can say, oh, well, she's going to grow up, or she's going to do this, or she's going to loosen up, or she's going X, Y, and Z. we know their trajectory, and so it's comfortable for us. And when we watch it, we just say, I'm just gonna get through this little part, this little hiccup in the road, so that I can get to the main story that I love. And so for me, when you start coming in saying, well, we want to add to that story and we want to expand it and we want to this and we want to do that, then to me, you're just tapping into this thing that everyone loves and you're trying to make them want more of it. Now, the comics are kind of a beast of a different color because even though I've never read them in their entirety, I have read some of them and I do know some of what happens in it. For me, I don't necessarily care for it, but I'm going to tell you specifically why. Part of it is because in a comic book, you can do whatever. There are no limits. There's no budget. There's no whatever. You can do whatever you want to do. You can make the characters fly to the moon if you want them to. And I think that part of the magic of Charmed in its original incarnation, for me, I'm going to say for me, so I'm not telling you what you should or should not enjoy, but for me, it was kind of the effects. It was like the fact that it looked like it had real world limits to it. Like, yeah, they were wilding out and they were doing whatever, but it seemed like at a certain point that had a cap to it. And so when you get into things like the source being a golem, when you get into the first witch, when you get into those stories seem so disconnected from charm to me that it did I say golem? I meant golem. I feel like you can say golem as well, but I meant to say golem. Anyway, child, for me, when you start trying to take a story like Charm to these new heights and have them do these fantastic things that are just so different from what we've seen on the show, to me, that's when it starts to lose a little bit of its identity because it just, to me, to Galen, right? Not, I am not telling you how you at home should feel. I am saying that to me, when you start doing stuff like that, it strips away that uniqueness of it and it just turns into something that you could just go find in another comic book. Like, oh, okay, you want to see them do X, Y, and Z? Yeah, you can go find blah 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 blah. I'm not a big comic book person. I don't know if y'all can tell that or not. But that's what I mean is you can find it somewhere else. As an actual fan watching the show and you see Piper freezing, now telekinesis is a little, everybody's got telekinesis, but the way that their powers seem like they're a part of the real world sometimes, that's what always draws me to it. And so when you get them doing things that are just so big, it just turns into this like fiasco. Now again, that's completely my personal taste as someone who likes to write. That is completely my taste as someone who likes to take in media, as someone who likes to watch stuff, listen to stuff. Did y'all hear my shoulder crack? But anyway, like I was saying, that's just those are the kind of stories that I like to listen to and like to watch and read and see unfold before my very eyes. And there's just something so I don't know, draining about taking the life out of it like that. And as it pertains to the kids, I don't know. I've always been very on the fence about that. I'm kind of leaning more towards no, though. I just feel like the time has passed for that. I kind of feel like we're at a point now where I don't necessarily need to know what the kids are up to. I don't need to know what the grandkids are up to. I don't need to know those things. And not because I don't need or don't want to. Like, I just don't want to be immersed back into the Charmed universe. But just time has passed to a point where I feel like trying to go back and see what happens with the kids and we need to show what the it's just fan service. Now fan service can be perfectly fine. I'm not telling you that fan service should not exist. I just feel like it's never going to be good enough. I just don't. I just feel like Charmed is one of those shows that because it has such a special place to us, nothing they do will be good enough because those stories aren't going to have that same feel. It's not going to have that same 90s sense of nostalgia. It's not going to have that sisterhood wrapped into it. It's not going to, yeah, I mean, it might, okay, it might. But what I'm saying is that going into it, I just feel like there is such a disconnect between the way Hollywood views franchises like this now. And it just, now, we've talked about this before, and I talked about this on TikTok Live the other day. And if y'all want to hear this, I absolutely would. I absolutely would go into it. But Charlie's Angels was one of the best adaptations I've ever seen. Adaptations, continuations, whatever you want to call it. The 2000s Charlie's Angels movies were the best to me. Example of how to take a previous franchise, understand what the magic of it was and then keep it going. But anyway, I have talked y'all's ear off and I apologize about that. I just really wanted to talk about this because I think that there's so much always discourse about we need a revival, we need a reboot, we need a this, we need a proper reboot. And it just I think that if the 2018 version showed us anything, is that it needs to be done very carefully. And I think that the 2018 show would have done a lot better if it hadn't been called Charmed, but that is a discussion for a different day. That may actually be a discussion that we have on the Patreon. Hmm. Speaking of the Patreon, I would like to take a quick moment to shout out my beautiful, lovely patrons and supporters over on Patreon. Thank you so much for being here for me. Thank you for supporting me, the channel, my endeavors, and everything that you do. Thank you for holding up the Power of G Entertainment LLC. Yes, you heard that correctly. The Power of G Entertainment LLC. 2025 is our year. So if you or somebody you know would like to join the Patreon, please feel free to head on over to Power of G and become a part of the coven. And before I forget, head on over to powerofgcommunity.com so you can see our lovely admins, our lovely moderators, and you can just look around and see what we have going on at the Power of G. You can see all of our events there. You can read a little bit about myself, and I think you'll have a grand old time. And so with that, everybody, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up today's video. Please let me know in the comments respectfully what you think about the video and what you think about the topic of it. Do you think Charm needs a reboot? Would you like to see it? And when I say a reboot, I'm not dismissing the 2018 reboot. I'm talking about one that is a little bit more, honest to the source material. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to let y'all go. And I hope y'all have a great day, great morning, great evening, whatever it is, wherever you are. And I will see y'all later. Bye.
We got the power. We got the power.